What's going on, guys? Welcome into today's show. I've got a great guest in Hala Taha. She is the CEO and founder of YAP Media, the Young and Profiting podcast, and all kinds of other amazing businesses around social content. And specifically, we dive in today on all things LinkedIn. This was a particular topic that we were going to go a couple different directions, but there was so much good insight and content that she shared around LinkedIn. It filled up the entire interview. We talk about all of the technical strategies, the do's, the don'ts, the ways to hack the algorithm, how to really build an ideal community, a culture, a brand that's going to generate real revenue for you, your business. Even if you don't own a business and you're somebody that's looking to expand your network, to expand your reach, maybe you're looking to start a side hustle. There's so many benefits and golden nuggets that she drops in this episode. So I'm excited for you guys to dive in. We'll be sure to check out millionairemindcast.com on her episode for all the links that you guys can find her podcast, her courses, the content that she puts out. There was some real gold in here. So I'm excited for you guys to dig in on today's interview. Let's get into it with Hala Taha. I'm excited to welcome to the show, Hala Taha. How are we doing today?
I'm doing great. Excited to be here.
So one of your brands and businesses, Young and Profiting, has completely transformed how people that are young and want to make profits go about building their business, building their brand. I want to know how you started this journey yourself. And obviously we can hear more about, a lot of the different strategies and things that you guys are working on and really seeing benefit, business owners and entrepreneurs right now. But where did this begin for you?
Oh man, I feel like I've been in this world since I was like 18 years old. So actually, I first dabbled in broadcasting. I got an internship in college at Hot 97, the world's #1 hip hop and R&B station. And that internship quickly turned into a job where I actually dropped out of college to work at the radio station for Angie Martinez, who was the voice of New York. I ended up going back to school, leaving the station, starting a blog, graduating school. And then I was straight up an entrepreneur right outside of college. I was trying to build this blog. It became a very popular hip hop blog, entertainment news site blog, and I would host events. And I almost got a show on MTV after like 2.5 years running this blog. And so essentially, I had this really unique career where I was in radio, I was hosting parties, I was blogging, I was hacking Twitter, and like really just learning from the internet, essentially. Yeah. And I ended up getting this reality TV show, like I said, and MTV filmed us all summer. And at that point, I basically had been working my butt off for 6 years, barely making any money, barely surviving, having a million odd jobs to like trying to keep things afloat. And I thought that I had made it and that like MTV was going to pay me $3,000 an episode. And like finally I was going to make it. And to me, that was like a lot of money back then. Yeah. And they ended up filming us all summer. And then 2 weeks before they were going to air the show, they pulled the plug. No reason. My producer called me up. I'm so sorry, Hala. We're not airing the show. And this was right after Jersey Shore. So here I was thinking I was going to be like the next JWoww or something. And like it totally pulled the plug on me. So I went into a different place. I thought, you know what? I just need to sustain myself. All my siblings are doctors. I come from like a family of doctors. And so I was like the black sheep party girl. And I was like, you know what? I need to go back to school, get my MBA. I got a 4.0, and then I got my foot in the door in corporate. I shut down my blog. I had 50 bloggers under me. And so those girls were so angry that I shut down the blog, but I just needed to do something for myself and to build myself. I thought I'm not going to be able to, make these girls celebrities or whatever they're looking for if I can't even sustain myself.
Yeah.
So I got my MBA, went to corporate, and started at Hewlett Packard. Ended up getting promoted 4 times in 4 years. I was the face of the young employees. And I just essentially became an intrapreneur. I started just building things at Hewlett Packard instead of on my own because that's my natural talent. I like to invent. I like to lead teams. And so I started the Young Employee Network at Hewlett Packard and started leading like 7,000 employees all over the world. And started reporting to the C-suite. And I was, like I mentioned, I was the face of the young employees at that company. Was almost like a little celebrity within Hewlett Packard, interviewing the CEO at the town halls and whatever. And my last year at Hewlett Packard, I didn't get an opportunity that I wanted. And I was really upset with everyone because I felt like I gave up everything. I'm no longer an entrepreneur. I'm focusing, like, not only working my full-time job and crushing it, I'm volunteering at Hewlett Packard as like a side hustle to like build these like cultural organizations and charity events and stuff that I was doing. And when they didn't give me what I wanted, I decided to start my podcast. And I thought, you know what? If I can't, do what I want to do at Hewlett Packard and lead all the young employees, I'm going to just lead all the young professionals online and just focus on building my own brand. And so I decided to start this podcast called Young and Profiting. I probably got inspired from this podcast. I got inspired probably from the Young Employee Network that I was running at Hewlett Packard in terms of the name. And I started my personal brand on LinkedIn at that point. And I decided I'm going to just focus on LinkedIn. Instagram, I was some whole other Hala on there that was interested in hip hop and music. And I felt like I needed to evolve my brand and I just wanted to start fresh.
Yeah.
And so I decided that a lot of people are looking to get educated on LinkedIn. I was running LinkedIn for Hewlett Packard and kind of knew how the algorithm worked. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to start posting. And I think I can stand out by posting about podcasts, by being a young female, talking about business, by playing video and things that people weren't doing on LinkedIn at the time. And then I started my personal brand on LinkedIn. So I'll pause here. Essentially, I became an influencer on LinkedIn first and then leveraged that to grow my podcast.
Amazing. And obviously that was early LinkedIn before a lot of business professionals really, at least the perspective and the paradigm of what they look at it today versus back then. But
I think so, yeah.
And media wise, not many young entrepreneurs and business owners immediately think media and I got to focus on starting there to build my business. But you saw a real opportunity, an ecosystem that aligned with your skills, your brand, your passion. So talk a little bit about your perspective around why media and why socials and what you encourage others to consider that are starting a business or maybe have one, but necessarily don't have an emphasis on some of those things. What was your outlook and perspective on it?
Yeah. So I have a different outlook than what I had originally. When I first started, it was purely passion. I want to serve others. I want to help other people that failed. I was somebody who kept falling on my face. And I felt like finally I'm making like over six figures. I'm really successful. I know what's going on. I know the entrepreneur side. I know the corporate side. And I just wanted to help other people. And so I had very pure intentions launching my personal brand and my podcast. And I think that was actually what made me very magnetic. Because I was actually just serving everyone and not asking for anything in return. I was just building trust with my community so that then when I did have courses or when I launched my social media agency, which by the way, I've never paid $1 in paid advertising and I've had a wait list since I started it 4.5 years ago. It's because I built this trust and community on social media and I built my social currency and my trust and my credibility on LinkedIn. And so now I have lots of clients. I run a top LinkedIn marketing agency, social media and podcast production agency called YAP Media. And I basically run all of these influencers on LinkedIn, podcasts, Instagram, you name it. And I've been doing that for 4.5 years. And I also have a podcast network called YAP Media where I grow and monetize other podcasts. And I have some of the biggest podcasters in the self-improvement business space in my network. So those are the two businesses that I have now. And when I talk to people who are thinking about getting on LinkedIn, whether they're students or clients, what I tell them is that this is where you're going to find your target audience in mass, right? The goal of marketing is to find your target audience in mass. And LinkedIn is absolutely one of the best ways to do that because LinkedIn has so much more data than other platforms. People on LinkedIn are inputting all of these keywords into their profile. They're doing things to let you know where they belong to, what schools they went to, where they're located, what jobs they've worked at in the past, what events they're registering, the groups that they're joining, right? There's all of these things that you can look up on LinkedIn to see where people's common interests are and where they're hanging out in mass. And then you can target them and bring them into your profile. So I feel like LinkedIn is an amazing way to grow your brand, to get more leads for your business. And the other thing to note is that it's just not saturated. Even
Yeah.
till this day, I started in 2018 and it's 2024 and it's still not saturated. There's 135 million daily active users on LinkedIn, and less than 6% of them are publishing original content.
Wow.
So if you know the publishing and engagement strategies, and you know how to actually work with the algorithm on LinkedIn, it doesn't take very much to just kind of figure it out. If you take a course like mine, or if you just pay attention to other influencers and what they're doing, right? And you get started on LinkedIn, you have an opportunity to be a thought leader in your niche. And I'll just say one more thing. So I'm like pretty popular. I'm a big podcaster, but I'm nowhere near as famous as somebody like, let's say, Alex Hermosi, who's like taking over the entrepreneurship world. He's a huge celebrity right now. On LinkedIn, I compete with Alex Hermosi. You know what I'm saying? Like you
Right.
can compete with people way above your level. So I'm competing with like Sarah Blakely and Alex Hermosi, because I figured out LinkedIn. And so I literally have as much visibility as somebody like that on the platform. I compete with Gary Vee on LinkedIn, right? On Instagram, I'm not competing with anyone, like I'm nowhere in their lane.
Yeah.
So it's just possible to kind of really break out on LinkedIn.
That's beautiful. And I'm glad that you brought up LinkedIn, because so many people don't focus on LinkedIn. People just think, oh, it's for, the white collar, C-suite type of person that's trying to network, but it's really expanded to becoming a true social network, not only from a business perspective, but from a customer and business interaction standpoint. So I would be mistaken if I didn't ask you some of your insight and strategies around LinkedIn. You mentioned, the algorithm, you mentioned engagement, you mentioned some of the do's and don'ts. Maybe we could talk on, some of those high level points around somebody that's going, man, I got a LinkedIn account, but maybe I'm looking at this all wrong. What should they be focused on?
Yeah. Okay. So there's a couple of things that I'll highlight. First of all, a lot of people go to LinkedIn. Maybe you signed up 10 years ago. You followed all your coworkers. You just accepted everybody who was in your invite list. And you have a hodgepodge of people who are your first connections on LinkedIn. One thing about LinkedIn is that the way that the algorithm works is that when you first put up a post, it's going to feed your post to a subset of users that are your first connections. So if these connections don't take viral action, if they're not interested in what you have to say, if they don't engage on your posts, if they don't log on, you're just going to fall flat. And that's why a lot of people have little success. They're posting and they haven't really cleaned up their followers, right? It's not that your followers are fake or whatever. They're just not interested in your stuff. And they're probably not even seeing your stuff anymore. So what I would recommend, and this is what I do for all my clients and my students, is first things first, if you have over 5,000 followers, I want you to actually look at your followers and clean them up. Decide, are they in your target audience, which means you need to know who your target audience is, right?
Yep.
Is it somebody that's going to buy your services? Can they afford your services? Are they going to be interested in your content, right? You can look at their titles. You can click on their profile. There's lots of ways to decide whether or not they're for you. If they're not, you should unfollow them, unconnect with them as a first connection. They're not going to know that you did that. There's no notification or anything like that. And then you're going to start to proactively want to bring in people who would take viral action on your posts. So there's many ways to do that. The best way is to determine who your lookalike profiles are. So for example, when I started on LinkedIn, I decided that Gary Vee was somebody who was very similar to me. People were calling me the female Gary Vee. He had a podcast. He talked motivation. He has a marketing agency. And I was like, okay, anybody who likes him is going to like me. And so I looked at who was recently liking and commenting on his posts. That way I knew they're interested in similar content. They're active on LinkedIn. They're taking viral action. They're liking, commenting, and sharing. And then I started to proactively invite those people to my network. I just look and see like who commented. Okay. Hey, Josh, nice to meet you. I'm Hala. I noticed that you engage with Gary Vee. If you like his stuff, you're going to like mine too. I'd love to provide value on your feed. Then the next message, what might be like, hey, I'd love to introduce you to my entrepreneurship podcast. You seem like you'd be really into it. Here's the latest episode with Chris Voss on negotiation. And I'd bring them down this DM funnel. And what I didn't realize was happening at the time, because now I know how the algorithm works, is that when you DM somebody and they DM you back, they're 85% more likely to see your content in their feed the next time. Mm-hmm. So I was manipulating the algorithm without realizing it. DMing is the highest viral action that anybody can do. So now when I posted, I not only was connected with people who take viral action that like what I say, I was more likely to be in their feed because I was DMing them all the time. Plus they liked me because I wasn't selling to them. I was just being nice and providing value. And so they were reciprocating, the law of reciprocity, right?
Yeah.
And so suddenly I became an influencer and I had 10,000 of Gary Vee's fans. And if I commented on Gary Vee's post, I'd get 100 likes and be the top comment, and more people would come to my funnel and people like, who's this girl that's getting all these likes and has all these followers and engagement on her stuff, right? So that's really how I started to kickstart things. And then you move on to the next lookalike profile. Okay, let's target Tony Robbins or Marie Forleo, and let's just try to see how many people we can get from these lookalike profiles. Then you can do the same thing. It's going to be a little bit less effective, but you can go to groups. You can go to events. Especially events is a really good one because you can register for an event on LinkedIn. So let's say when I am promoting my LinkedIn course, I'm looking up any sort of webinar or event that's on LinkedIn that's about social media.
Okay.
And then I can register for that event and see everybody who registered for it. And then I can DM those people, hey, I noticed you're signed up to this LinkedIn training. I've got this free webinar. I'd love to invite you. Right. And so you can find all those people en masse and kind of bring them into your world. So that's the kind of stuff that you can do on LinkedIn. And so that first tip was really all about like resurrecting a dead profile, which is a huge blocker for most people on starting on LinkedIn because they just feel like, oh, it's just I get no engagement when I post. It's crickets. Right. So that's how you get yourself out of jail on LinkedIn, is to kind of resurrect your first connections and make sure you're bringing in people who take viral action and removing people who may not be interested in your content.
I love that.
So I'll pause there, but I have lots of other algorithm insights.
I was going to say we should definitely continue down that rabbit hole. But I want to ask you a question around your mindset and the discipline and the stamina to consistently do this over and over again and trust that, you know, the collection of these activities are going to yield great results, right? Or I don't want to bother somebody. I don't want to come off as pushy or salesy, right? There's all of these kind of narratives that people find that prevent them from taking action. And it really is what prevents them from having success. What's your personal mentality and mindset around going and doing things that most people are scared to do?
I mean, if you don't ask, you're never going to get anything, right? And I'd say that there's a right way and a wrong way to do it. You can definitely DM people on LinkedIn and not come off as spammy. It's definitely possible because you can establish common ground. You can use something that I call the laws of likability and do things in a way where you don't come off as spammy. So first of all, people that are on LinkedIn are primed to have sales conversations. These are people that are working. They have problems. They're coming on LinkedIn. They're using LinkedIn like Google and searching up content and via keywords and things like that. And they want to solve their problems. They want to buy things. They're decision makers at companies, and they all have problems that you might have the solution to. So if you do your research and you know exactly what titles you're trying to reach out to, you really understand what kind of pain points your target audience has, and you find them en masse, the way that you actually found them is the way that you can connect with them. So for example, let's say, we'll go back to the event example. Hey, I noticed that you're signed up for this social media training on growing your following. I actually have this new cheat sheet on LinkedIn that tells you exactly how to do that. I'd love to share it with you. It's totally free. Let me know how you like it. You know what I'm saying? So the way that you found them is actually how you connect with them. And the key is to actually provide value. Yeah. So you need to think about what are your lead magnets that you're going to give that actually help people solve some of their problems? And how can you actually give some of your best stuff away for free so you can build that trust and credibility and become an authority in your space? So I feel like you just need to understand how to approach these things. And then the other thing I'll say is that if you don't want to come off as spammy, you really want to be a little bit more passive. So for example, if I say, hey, I noticed that you're part of this LinkedIn event on social media, and I know you're going to love my LinkedIn cheat sheet. I'd love to share it with you. They're going to be like, you don't know anything about me. Why are you telling me what I'd like and what I don't like? Mm-hmm. And they'll shut you down. Yeah. But if you say like, I think you may like this cheat sheet because you're signed up for an event about growth, and you just make it a little softer, like I think you may like, people are just going to be, oh, okay, cool, thank you.
Right.
Because people love to kind of prove you wrong and shut you down, right? So it's like you've got to be a little bit softer and more passive and helpful and be of service. And like those are the things that you need to keep in mind.
Yeah, language is so important in sales. There's just one word can make all the difference, right? Between the approach and how it's received. So
Yeah.
that's obviously a great way to get the ball rolling back with the algorithm. What are some of the other things you've seen be very beneficial when it comes to maximizing the power of LinkedIn?
Okay. So 2 things that you should keep in mind. LinkedIn makes money in 2 ways, right? So they make money through LinkedIn Marketing Solutions, which is ads. And they make money through LinkedIn Talent Solutions, which is all about hiring, recruiting, helping companies find talent.
Yeah.
Right? Those are the 2 main ways they make money. So whenever you're thinking about a social media platform and how to hack it, you need to think about what is LinkedIn's incentives, right? So on the ad side, LinkedIn wants to keep people on the platform for as long as possible. So you've got to always think about, how do I keep people on my posts for longer? How do I not take them off of LinkedIn? How do I create super engaging content that's going to create conversations in the comments, that's going to get people to share it with a caption? How do I keep users on the platform for as long as possible? Right?
Yep.
Then on the flip side, LinkedIn is a hiring site. So they're trying to brand themselves, and they've done a really incredible job as a place that helps people hire, that helps people recruit, find jobs, that's like a recruitment hiring thing. They want to control that editorial agenda where LinkedIn is positioned as a hiring site. Okay. So that means that LinkedIn is actually determining what are the most viral posts of the day. They have human editors that are scanning all the posts, and they're deciding what is actually going mega viral. And anything that goes super viral, when I have client posts that get 30K likes or 50K likes or 100K likes, like huge, massive posts that will get you like 10 to 30,000 followers at once, that go viral for weeks, they all have to do with hiring and recruitment. Mm-hmm. So you need to think about, aside from your regular content, two times a week or so, what is the intersection between what you talk about and hiring and recruitment? Because those are the things that LinkedIn is actually trying to find and push so they can control the editorial agenda. The other things that they're looking for is like promotions, right? Stuff about entrepreneurship. They do have Sales Navigator as another item that they sell, which is mostly for business owners, right? Things about like Women's History Month or Black History Month, any sort of like big sort of holiday or theme that LinkedIn is trying to align to, they might push those types of posts too. But 99% of the time, it's about careers, hiring, recruitment. And they're pushing that content. So I can basically hack the algorithm for my clients, for my students, where everyone's getting 500 likes, 1,000 likes, 2,000 likes, 3,000 likes. But for those massively viral posts, it's actually LinkedIn determining what's going super, super viral.
That's great. That is a golden nugget right there for
it is.
Right. And what you're saying is just understand the platform and align yourself with the platform's goals as well. Right.
Yes.
Not only just, hey, what do I want out of this, but what is the platform trying to get out of this and who are they trying to serve? And maybe think about that in your content curation strategy, which kind of leads me to, how do you curate your own content, and what is your process for how you decide what to put on your podcast, what you decide to put in your posts, thinking about, how individuals sometimes feel like they lack the creativity or the content to put out. What do I talk about, right? I don't want to just talk about my business all the time. Like, what's your methodology and what's your approach to how you curate your own content?
Yeah, this is such a good question. So on LinkedIn especially, your voice and your messaging matters far more than your graphics and your videos. It's all about the keywords that you're using, repeating your messages over and over and over again, and standing for something consistent so people know what you stand for. And it's not so much about having like a hot new reel, you know what I'm saying? Like a short, catchy video like it is on Instagram and TikTok. It's more about your actual words and what you stand for and your messaging. So one of the things that I do, I have a LinkedIn masterclass. It's a 2-day workshop. And one of the first things that I have everybody do is create voice guidelines. And in that, we're uncovering what are their core values, what's their personality type, What are their key messages? So everybody should have 4 or 5 key messages that they repeat over and over again. And that's essentially how they want to transform their audience, and like the big lessons that they want to be teaching to their audience that they can tell in 1,000 different ways, but they've got to repeat the same ones.
Yes.
And they can be evolved over time, but that's what branding is. Branding is consistency, right? So what are the consistent things you're going to repeat over and over again? And then how do you deliver that message? What are the ways that you're going to actually deliver that message? Is it live streams? Is it podcasts? Is it, posts, whatever it is, right? So creating voice guidelines is really important. Also, when you're creating those voice guidelines, something that you want to consider is who your target audience is. Because the way that you speak and connect with your audience should actually mirror your audience. It's not totally about you. It should have elements of you, but you actually want to mirror your audience. So for example, if I'm trying to attract high-level business owners, then I've got to look the part. I've got to talk like a professional. I've got to dress like a professional, and I've got to look the part. I've got to mirror my audience to attract the type of people that I want. If I'm trying to attract young teenagers, I should talk with slang and talk like they talk, right? To be relatable to them, right? So those are all the things that you need to think about in terms of voice guidelines. The other big tip that I'll say is that storytelling is really important. I find that whenever I take the time, now I have a team that helps me run my social media. I'm rarely like actually posting, but when I do actually post and it's like a really juicy story, that's when I get by far the most engagement. Or if I put up a live stream where somebody else is interviewing me about my story, I'll get like 10 times more DMs. Like, oh my God, I connected so much with you, blah, blah, blah. Because people want to hear your stories. People trust you more and they consider you more of an old friend when you share your stories. So I've got fans that literally feel like I'm their friend because they know all of my stories. And a lot of people don't write down their stories. So one of the things I have my students do is create a story journal and think about every big bucket in your life. When you were a child growing up, high school, college, getting your first job, getting married, having kids, like whatever your life path was. And what are all the big things that happened to you? Did you get fired? Did you have a weight loss transformation? Did you go through a bad breakup? Did somebody die? Like what happened to you? And what are the 20 to 40 stories that you have? And what are the lessons that you've learned from those stories? And then now that you have those stories, which stories actually align to your key messages? How can you make these stories align to your key messages? And there you go. You've got 20 stories that have key messages that align to what you want to promote on social media. And then you can create your content that way and infuse stories, write them in a million different ways, the same stories, right? You want to be consistent. So it's okay to tell the same story over and over again. It's your story. And that's how you can really get started on your content. The last thing I'll say is that you need to understand the features that work on every platform. All right. So with LinkedIn, for example, they're trying to be more video first, and maybe videos will become more popular in the future. But for now, photographs are the most popular thing. And that's good news for everyone because that's not very expensive to do and not very hard, right? Get a photo shoot. I take selfies on my iPhone, post it up and go viral, And so having a vertical photograph on LinkedIn works great, or quotes. And you can just really lean into that. Stories and photographs, meaningful content with keywords, right? That's something we didn't get into, but keywords are really important on LinkedIn, and you'll be off to the races.
Timeline. People are always so impatient. I always say the crock pot is always much better than the microwave, and yet everybody wants the quick result. What's the mindset around timeline and the consistency that's required to actually gain momentum and yield results in LinkedIn and other social platforms?
I think compared to other social platforms, the time is super fast on LinkedIn. I have students that take my masterclass, for example, and the next day they're like, I 10x'd my impressions, because great. It's just, you need to understand how the algorithm works and you need to understand the how, right? Yeah. And once you understand the how, the same content that you were probably posting before suddenly does better because you just know everything else that you're supposed to be doing, right? So there's little tweaks with LinkedIn in terms of your publishing and engagement strategies. So for example, using too many hashtags, more than 5, will put you in the spam filter. Tagging too many people will put you in the spam filter. Posting up the first comment will put you in the spam filter. So it's like once you know all these little hacks of what you shouldn't do, suddenly you're 10xing just the next time you post. So if you just learn from somebody who knows how to use the platform, you'll see results very quickly. In terms of growing your following, if you are really consistent, I would say a good goal would be like 20,000 followers a year. If you're not going to like
Good
really
metric.
go crazy, yeah, it's a pretty good metric. If you're just start today and you're consistent, you take a course or something like that, I think you could probably grow 20,000 followers a year, organic, real followers.
Yes. And now talking about frequency, time of the day, does any of that matter or does it?
It does. So you don't want to overpost on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Just once a day, once every 24 hours, your posts technically can all go viral at the same time. However, I see that like you can cannibalize yourself. So like I would post once every 24 hours. As an influencer, I have to post more than that. And I actually know, like, for example, if I'm in like a promotion period or I have a lot of sponsors, I have to post more than once a day. And I actually know that I'm performing worse.
Mm.
But sometimes it's not about going viral. Sometimes it's about getting clicks and conversions. And I'd rather just engage my media audience and get clicks and conversions for my sponsors and my own products rather than necessarily go viral. So every post has a purpose. So if you have to post twice in a day because you want leads, that's a different story. Okay.
Yes.
So once a day, if you're trying to go viral, timing, I'd say like 9 a.m. Wherever you're located, especially if your audience is in your time zone. So like 9 a.m. Wherever you're located is a good time. 10 a.m. is cool. Lunchtime is good. After work is good. So basically you want to just think about what is the average worker doing, right? So 8:30, 9 a.m., they're settling in their desk. They might be looking at LinkedIn. They might be taking a break at lunch. They might be like everybody on LinkedIn pretty much has a job, right?
Yep.
So you just want to think about like, what is the average worker doing right now?
Love that. Now, you're always, and I can see it over your shoulder, listen, learn, and profit. I know you're always listening to what's going on around you and you're learning from other people. Talk a little bit about how are you consistently finding ways to sharpen your own tools, your own acts, stay in front of these trends and curves when it comes to, we'll just stay on the LinkedIn talk, how it all ties into LinkedIn and you staying at the top of your game.
Yeah, it's so important. I find that the best way that I can continue learning is to actually teach other people. So, for example, whenever I'm preparing for my masterclass, I do it like once a quarter for LinkedIn. I'm always kind of like, trying to discover like, okay, what changed? Like, what's new? Let's do this analysis. Let's do this test. And it gives me the motivation to kind of make sure that I've got everything up to date. I know all the latest and greatest. And it's really the motivation is teaching other people and making sure I'm doing a good job. Right.
Yeah.
So I love to just like use that as an excuse. Something else similar to that is I was sponsored by BetterHelp. It's like a mental health therapy app. And I have undiagnosed ADHD. It's what makes me like an awesome entrepreneur.
Right.
I love having it now. For a long time, I didn't realize how to maybe harness it in the best way. And so me doing this presentation for other entrepreneurs with ADHD, I just like got the motivation to learn more about it, to learn different hacks. And then I got to teach it to everybody. It's such a great way to learn is to actually just teach other people.
That's great. Great advice there. And I know a lot of people are going to want to learn from you and, learn more about your courses, your content, the podcast. What's the best place for people to connect with you, Hala?
Amazing. So for the course, you can go to yapmedia.com/course and you can find all the information on there. I do it about once a quarter. For the podcast, I'd love for you guys to check out Young and Profiting. You can find us on Apple, Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcasts. And if you're interested in my social media agency, just go to yapmedia.com.
Hala, thanks for coming on the show today.
Thank you so much.